Essence of Thought passed its 10th anniversary on the 14th of September, triggering a mixture of emotions. I knew I wanted to do something to mark the occasion, but felt conflicted about what that should be. Over the past 2 years, I've mentioned how I very rarely feel like I have anything to celebrate, finding it difficult to even take part in queer pride due to my mental health. So I was kinda stuck for this one. Then I started talking to Aditya and Levi about the way the channel was going when I suddenly got struck with an idea. Anytime I've talked about my early years on YouTube in the past, I've always had to stop myself from wandering over into the story of how I came to make videos in the first place, beginning with one child's passion for monster movies. So why not make this video about that? Why not talk about how Godzilla led this mess to become a trans YouTuber? So the fire started when I was incredibly young, between 3 and 4 years of age. My dad had recorded an ITV run of 3 movies to cassette tapes: Godzilla vs. Megalon, Godzilla vs. Gigan, and The Terror of Mechagodzilla. I remember he actually missed the first half of Godzilla vs. Megalon, but since it started just before Big G turned up, I wasn't going to complain. I watched those cassettes again and again, to the point that they started to wear out the tape. From there, the passion continued. I was Godzilla crazy. Anytime I could talk about or imitate them, I would. I remember when we were living at REF Odeum, there was some construction work going on, resulting in blocks of dirt all over the pathway in front of our house. Those blocks were just strong enough to stay together and look like rocks, but weak enough to break apart under any sort of pressure. And the joy 5-year-old me got from crushing those, thinking back to Godzilla's appearance in Godzilla vs. Megalon, was just incredible. It was the simple bliss of being a child. I've always had great visualization and still do, even today. In fact, a lot of my best thinking and subsequent writing happens when I visualize scenes to music. Some that I remember from film or television, and others I created entirely, linking the emotion of what I see in my head to the words I come out with. Later on, Do you hear that? It sounds like someone typing furiously in the comments. Oh, that's probably just Levi getting ready to let me know that using visualization to help process one's thoughts is a hallmark of neurodivergence, particularly autism, adding to the laundry list of things that should have given things away. Later on, I'd buy a Godzilla bath toy whilst living in the refuge, something that had become my prized possession. It was a good size for playing with micro machines, these tiny toy vehicles that were very popular when I was a kid, not to forget incredibly tough. So it really was the perfect toy, being nigh indestructible. I actually bought the same toy a few years back, as sadly the original was given away when I grew out of things, and I really felt nostalgic for it. Like, I don't tend to give objects a lot of meaning, but this thing was my bedrock after the refuge. Sadly, it's currently in the UK, and I haven't been able to get a hold of it for obvious reasons, else I'd be showing it off now. So you'll have to settle for this photo used on the eBay listing I bought it from. Anyway, the monster fanaticism continued to grow beyond Godzilla, sometimes faster than was good for me. I remember my brother getting hold of a copy of Dog Soldiers from a friend, a British comedy horror about soldiers trapped in a Scottish house surrounded by werewolves. I was like 11 or 12 at the time, and the movie has some pretty graphic scenes in it, I'm not gonna lie. Not my smartest move, watching that one, but one done in the name of discovery. It was also around that time that I began to take an interest in movie production and effects. I started watching these making of specials that dealt with creature features such as the Walking With specials, which ultimately led me to the stop motion methods of one Ray Harryhausen. Funny thing is, I'd already sort of reverse engineered stop motion and just hadn't realised it yet. In the 2003 game Jurassic Park Operation Genesis, you can take up to 15 photos of the dinosaurs whilst driving through their exhibits in the classic cars. And something I remember doing as a kid was taking those 15 photos one after another, exiting the exhibit and then playing them back in quick succession, as it would create this slow motion mini movie, kinda like a flipbook. So I understood that every video was made up of individual photographs or frames. Which was good, since this was before I had regular access to the internet, meaning I didn't have YouTube tutorials at my disposal. All I had was the knowledge given to me by those making your specials and my own messing around with in-game photographs, which is all I needed, teaching myself how to use Windows Movie Maker so I could start to make my first proper films, for which I mostly used the Bionicles and the aforementioned Micro Machines due to their articulation. But I also used my Godzilla bath toy, because of course I would. Godzilla's like the best monster ever. And the skills I learned through doing this went on to help me elsewhere. I even started using them in school projects since the school rules stipulated that you could use video in place of presentations, which was brilliant for me and my anxiety. I remember getting an A towards my final GCSE grade in food technology for a presentation while sitting at the back of the class. In another turn of luck, my fear of werewolves had flipped, becoming pure fascination. Again, I didn't have internet access at my mum's, so whenever I was visiting my dad, I spent hours reading up on the lore, looking at art, and watching werewolf music videos. Just general hyperfixation stuff. Again, I'm sure Levi will revel in pointing to this and remarking that he doesn't know how I went without a diagnosis for so long. Anyway, my searches in 2009 on a little website you may have heard of called YouTube led me to discover an anime by the name of Magipoken, which I found due to its inclusion of a character, Liru the werewolf, clips of whom had been uploaded. Just a quick disclaimer, I went back and tried watching the actual show last year, but I couldn't make it past the first few minutes. Don't be fooled by the show's edgy intro or cutesy look. It is every bad anime stereotype you can imagine. I'm embarrassed that I ever liked anything originating from such a bad show. My only defense is I was 14 when I watched the clips on YouTube. Speaking of which, I remember watching a particular clip simply titled Liru Love Rain when I decided to scroll down into the mystical world that is the comment section on YouTube, where I happened upon two people debating about whether Liru was technically a furry or not. And like a kid who was just told about the magic of a peculiarly coloured breakfast food, I googled that word, leading me to discover the furry fandom on YouTube, where I quickly set up shop. Now, I already had a YouTube account at the time and didn't see any reason to change it. So my channel was called Lord Pete 9. I know, very humble beginnings. Though be sure not to confuse me with Lord Pete 9-Topic, who is a completely different person. Do you know how you can tell this isn't me? I'd never name my song Pray. That's just something I wouldn't do. Like, I'm an atheist. It's kind of a big thing for me. My account is of course gone now. Let's just say Toho, the studio behind the original Godzilla, is about as aggressive as the monster itself when it comes to copyright claims. Though my DeviantArt still exists, and there are even some videos out there thanking me for helping them figure out how to make stuff. A lot of people back then, particularly young people, had difficulty understanding that saving a video file isn't the same as rendering it. I helped a number of people with this and similar problems. Of course, losing my channel wasn't the end for me, and I came back with another name, a better name. Lord Pete 10. Oh yeah, I'm a freaking genius. Sadly, what happened next isn't something I really want to talk about in this video, as I'm trying to keep things light-hearted. Suffice to say, I was made to leave the furry fandom, leading me to migrate to the secular community. Now, there was nothing particularly special about the channel for the first few years. I simply did response videos and learned more and more about the relevant fields. I was always very autodidactic, as seen in how I taught myself Movie Maker, Audacity, and later Sony Vegas, so I really took to things like a duck to water. I reveled in the fact that each video could be about something entirely different, you know? I learnt geography, paleontology, archaeology, chemistry, mathematics, astrophysics, even some language stuff in my never-ending quest to understand as much as I could, and pass that on to others. And I wasn't always right. I turned 17 the month after I opened Essence of Thought, but I learned and continue to improve on things. College also helped in that regard, the way it got us to be critical of everything, particularly in sociology, rather than simply repeating what we were told like in school. It also opened my eyes to social theories I'd been sheltered from most of my life, such as feminism and queer theory, leading me to become an openly queer feminist atheist. I guess I should note here that I had always come at things from a sociological perspective. My first video was named Atheist Morals, Values and Social Norms, and sought to explain the origin of secular ethics via sociology. This was a trend I'd continue as my channel grew, adopting the title humanist as I learned more about the philosophy. Sadly, there was a big shift online around 2014 as I entered my second year at uni, where we saw a massive spike in vocal anti-feminism, which was particularly scary for me as a recently out trans feminist. I didn't want to give up who I was, but at the same time, I really didn't want to paint a target on my back. So I shrunk myself down for the most part, making myself more palatable for others, something I'm still dealing with to this day. That's not to say I put up no resistance. I mean, it was my work on feminism from that period that became the source of what is perhaps the channel's signature feature, its referencing style. Atheist content creators can largely be divided into two groups, the Pwn Squad and the people who actually know what they're talking about. Now, I really didn't want to be the former. I was disappointed in the lack of thought displayed by so many self-proclaimed skeptics, a trend that has sadly continued to this day, so I set about putting as much distance between myself and them as possible. I wanted people to know the exact source I was referencing when I made a statement so they could check things for themselves. I don't leave the work up to you, the viewer, to figure out what reference I'm using at what time. I straight up tell you. That level of transparency is something I'm really proud of. Then, 2019 happened. Yeah, we're not going there either. Safe to say, it was a big part of the reason behind the changing focus of the channel. It was difficult to go back to things as they were after all I'd seen. Most secular discussion is worthless grandstanding that achieves absolutely nothing, and I didn't want to be a part of that. I wanted to make an actual difference, to create a place where not only trans folk, but people of other marginalized groups could come and feel secure. How have I done in that regard? Hell if I know. I mean, it's not really my place to say. But yeah, that's the wild story of how my passion for Godzilla ended up with me becoming a full-time trans YouTuber. A trans tuber. Yeah, no, that was terrible. We're not using that again. Though since we're already here reflecting on the past, I'd like to take a moment to think about the future. So like I mentioned in my 2020 year in review video was the fact that I felt like a lot of my content was incredibly bleak and people might be dropping off due to that and the nature of everything going on currently. That's kind of what I was talking to Udita and Levi about when I had the idea for this video. And I do think it's true. With responding to religious content, there were a lot more low-stakes conversations. Ones I could let my hair down and laugh about, which I do feel is an important part of what I do. Sadly, the last couple of years haven't really allowed for that. Anytime I tell myself I'm going to take time for myself to do passion projects, there's always something that ambushes me, sometimes even multiple things at once. And sadly, in a lot of those instances, I don't see anyone else tackling them in detail. And so I force myself to shoulder that responsibility. A part of me does think that the events of 2019 and how they ended broke something in me. Reminder, I only got involved in all that because dozens of trans people begged me to, only for me to then messed the whole thing up by underestimating just how vile the people I was critiquing were. I kind of feel like I've been trying to atone for that ever since. But I've come to realize that's not helping anyone. What is it we say at the start of every episode of the Trans Agenda? That we're here to discuss trans news in an inclusive manner that expresses the full range of trans people's humanity. Well, I feel like I haven't really been doing that for myself. I've been denying myself the opportunity to show my passion, my awe, my happiness, but above all, my hope. Because yes, as shocking as it might be, as bleak as my channel may have become, I do have hope. Anger at injustice is not all that drives me. If it were, I'd be a nihilist. There's hope that things can and will get better, and I'd like to be around to see that. So I'm going to try and put out more positive content. I still got a backlog to work through, and I'll inevitably slip up at times, but I at least want to try. As such, I need you to understand that I can't cover every major thing that hurts the trans community. There are going to be times I can't cover something. Not because I don't care, but because there's only so much I can give. So, here's to the next 10 years, hopefully filled with more joy than the previous 10. And to start things off on the right foot, tomorrow the 24th of October, which is my birthday by the way, I'll be doing a casual live stream with Levi, playing some Stardew Valley, talking about the game and answering some of your questions about either the game or our work here on the channel. And I'd love for some of you to stop by and be a part of that, so be sure to set yourself a reminder if that'd interest you. And if you'd like to support our future ventures, please consider becoming one of our wonderful patrons who make all this possible. On that note, we'd just like to thank the following people: Matthew Kovac, Hannah Banghart, Gerrit Van Voorst, and Cthulhu. And for myself, Udita and Levi, take care now.